welcome to the second episode of the Rise Up Report. This is your source for all news XCFL Atlanta Falcons football, and I'm your host, Nick Naylor, and we have a great show for you today. We're going to go over the standings thus far. We have 3 weeks in the book, and the Falcons are red hot. We're going to look at their team stats and look how they fare against the other 31 teams. We're going to look at a player spotlight. We got a special player to kind of go over. We got a rookie watch. We're going to take a look at our rookies and see how they're doing thus far. We're going to look at the injuries. We're going to see how the Falcons have been hit by the injury bug. And finally, we're going to look at the schedule for the upcoming 3 weeks. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started here. And as you can see, the Atlanta Falcons are off to a great start, 3-0. Their last game, they beat their division rivals, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, by the score of 46-7. And watching this team, you can't help but think that every single week their defense just tends to get better and better. This last week they forced 5 turnovers, and their offense was able to limit their turnovers to 0. And they only gave up 305 total yards. And if you look at the stats, Nathan Peterman, even before he went out, he threw 4 interceptions, and he didn't have an answer for this pass rush. They only had 3 sacks. However, they did get in his face enough to where he had to force the ball. And Jalen Collins had a fantastic game with 3 interceptions, and he's showing you why they were able to trade Trufant. They do love this guy, and we're going to talk about him more in the show. But if you look here, Carolina, they lost a heartbreaker to Pittsburgh within the last minute, and New Orleans, they haven't played their 3rd game yet, but they sit at the bottom at 0-2. As you can see, Atlanta they do hold the keys to this division as of right now. Obviously, that could go away, but if they play like they're playing now, they are going to dominate for times to come here. Now, we're going to take a look here at their statistical categories, and we're going to look first at their offense. As you can see, their points per game is 35. They're putting up an average of 35 points a game, and that ranks 2nd in the entire XCFL. And yards per game, 363, and surprisingly, that's 3rd rank for this offense. They haven't had to do a lot. They've been able to pass the ball and run. Matt Ryan, he's missing Julio a little bit, but you can see that getting rid of him and clearing up that cap, they do like Sterling Shepard. He is actually leading their team with 8 receptions. They do love this guy, and they also put Tajay Sharp on the other side. 2 young guys that are going to be here from years to come. And look at the rushing offense. Devontae Freeman has recreated himself and just becoming a running nightmare for defenses. He's actually 3rd in the league with rushing. They're averaging 153 yards a game. Now, if you look over at their defense, and we had talked about that, they're getting better every single week. They're only allowing 15 points per game. They're allowing, that's 2nd in the NFL, and the yards per game is only 193, and that's 7th. I mean, if you look here, they are allowing, it's under 200 yards total defense or total offense they're allowing. This is helping them be able to stop these drives, and the offense doesn't have to win these games in shootouts. They are shutting down opposing offenses thus far. As you look here, they are 14th against the pass, which isn't the best, but they're still doing really well with that. And look at that, 18 yards of total rushing offense against them. That is huge, especially when the top of the conference loves to run the ball. So we'll see if they can keep up this momentum. And this is even with their starting linebacker, Deion Jones, out. And we're going to talk about that later as well. So, so it's really good to see the offense and defense clicking. Again, they played 3 pretty decent opponents. Obviously, Tampa Bay was a 2nd seed, and they just demolished them 46-7. They did beat the Saints 31-17, and then at week 1 they beat the Ravens 28-21. Very impressive games thus far. It doesn't get any easier going forward, so we will also, like I said, talk about that later. But let's go ahead and take a look at our player profile here, and we are going to spotlight Jalen Collins. This guy has been dynamite. He is actually tied for the lead with 4 interceptions And as you can see in this video, 3 of them came against the Buccaneers. He has just been phenomenal. And there was a question: could he take the torch? Was he going to be able to cover those number 1 receivers? And he has shown thus far that between him and Gross, them guys have been able to shut down those high receivers. And Mike Evans, he really didn't do much that last game, and they were able to really shut him down. Now, Gross was covering him for most of the game, but Jalen Collins was just at the right place at the right time. And Peterman, for some reason was just throwing at him. He is in a contract year, so they're going to have to probably dish out the big bucks to re-sign him. But hey, he's proven that he can become the number 1 cornerback for the Falcons. Only at 25 years old, 83 overall, he still can progress at this point. I do like him as a shutdown corner. Obviously, he's going to have some tough matchups with Dez Bryant coming up, AJ Green, just to name a few. So he's going to be tested to see if he can stop those opposing wide receivers. And it's obviously in Week 12 he faces the Giants, which has Julio Jones, Odell Beckham, and Alshon Jeffrey, which is just a matchup nightmare for defenses. So this is the player that we want to spotlight, mainly because he has stepped up to the plate and proved that he could fill the shoes of Desmond Trufant. So we love watching this guy. So at this point, we're going to take a look at the rookies here. As you can see, Sinalou Gross sits at the top. 8 tackles, 1 interception, 3 deflections. And the last game against Mike Evans, he actually had 2 deflections against that Tampa Bay offense. He has just been great pairing up with him and Collins on each side. Their opposing offenses are not able to just torch them. Gross is stepping right in. You wouldn't even think he's a rookie. He is playing lights out. I see him in contention at the end of the year for the NFC Defensive Player, the Rookie of the Year. So we'll see. Number 2, I want to spotlight Joseph Deal. He's played 3 games, all 126 snaps. Look at the big stat, though. 0 sacks. They actually have him at left guard right now, and he is playing great. He has not given up a sack at all. That's allowed Matt Ryan enough time back there to, allow him to find the open receiver and even allow these young receivers to develop. So that was a great pickup and deal. He's actually been huge in the run game. He's got the acceleration where he can pull out and, with those power runs. And that's actually what's also helped Freeman, with his running. He actually had 185 yards against the Buccaneers, and he has just been, it's due to this offensive line. And Joseph Deal, being at left guard, he's one of the biggest contributors to that. Now we go down to Jamal Perkins. He is actually hurt. He was hurt his first game. He had 3 tackles, 1 for a loss. He probably would have a lot more stats if he didn't get hurt that first game. And then you look down at Quadarius Swanson, only 2 tackles, and then you look at Gray, no tackles. Gray's not really been playing enough. He's more of a filler right now until we get him built up. Same thing with Swanson. So we do like the rookies right now, but obviously Gross and Deal, those 2 are the ones that are sticking out the most as of right now. So we're going to take a look at the injury report, and 3 notable names. All 3 are great, and all 3 same injury. Deion Jones with a shoulder tear. He's out 3 weeks. He was actually hurt a couple weeks ago, so he hasn't been able to play. They did sign Kevin Minter to back up to be on the other side of Campbell. So I do like that as of right now. They have, shown that, at this point they don't really need Deion Jones, but when he comes back, that speed and zone coverage, he's going to be dominant, and he's just even going to help them even more in that run game. This is going to be, it makes me shiver just thinking about Deion Jones coming back and just being dominant force. He's the heart and soul of that defense. So that you could just, they're going to do even better when he comes back. Jeremy Hill, he's out for 4 weeks. He's actually been, they were actually going to utilize him in between the tackles and going up in the middle with dives and draws and stuff like that. try to relieve a little pressure from Freeman. But now, Freeman, with him out, Freeman's got to pick up the pace, and he's actually been doing a great job. He hasn't got hurt, knock on wood, but we expect Hill to make an impact when he comes back in 3 to 4 weeks. And then finally, we were talking about this earlier, Jamal Perkins. This guy was number 4 pick overall. Got hurt, the second game, and he tore his shoulder, and he's going to be out for 4 weeks. This is a huge loss for them, especially with their upcoming schedule. And as you'll see in a little bit, they actually have 5 road games coming up. So this is going to be tough for them, especially these 3 players, all starters, all playmakers. They've been doing well, though. Like I said, they were able to beat Tampa Bay pretty decisively. So we'll see how everything else comes in effect here. So we're going to take a look at their schedule here upcoming. First off, let's take a look at the win-loss. We talked about this again. The Ravens, they beat them 28-21. The Ravens came out, looked really good. The rookie tight ends for the Raven actually played really well, and they were actually able to hold back the Falcons a bit. Now, the week 2 against the Saints, it was pretty decisive. They weren't really able to move. They were able to move the ball quite decently, but they did force turnovers, and the Falcons, that's what they do. They play off your turnovers, and they just use it against you, putting them in good field position. And then look at week 3, they won that very decisively and against a very good Bucs team. Now, you're going to take a look at the Bucs and think, wow, maybe that Winston trade wasn't such a great thing. I personally wouldn't have done it. They have Nathan Peterman. He was hurt in that game, and he's out for 5 weeks, so they had to go sign Tom Savage. So they're going to have a really tough stretch as well. If you look at the 3 upcoming games, they got the 2-1 Cowboys, which the Cowboys won their division, the East, last year. The Redskins, they're 1-1, but don't let them fool you. They got a really good team. And then the Bengals, you may say, 0-2, their first pick. Don't let a record sneak up on you. Any of these teams can win at any time. And if you look, they had 5 away games, and then even after that, then they have we'll talk about that in another episode, but they have the Eagles at home. But this is a tough stretch for them, and it's very important that they grab at least 2 out of those next 3 games. If not, the Bucs can definitely crawl back into this. So it's going to be an exciting season. I'm very excited to go take this to you and tell you all about all things Atlanta Falcons football. So as always, I'm your host, Nick Naylor. Thanks you for joining me. Please subscribe and like, and we will talk to you later. I'm out.